Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to understanding the stories really shaping things right now. And today, we are definitely diving deep into something major, former President Donald Trump's announcement about a potential breakthrough in Gaza. It's moving incredibly fast, high stakes all around, and our mission here is simple. Give you a really clear, comprehensive picture of what's actually going on. We'll unpack this proposed 60-day ceasefire, the conditions, who the key players are, their positions, and crucially, what's happening on the ground, the reality for people in Gaza. Think of this as your essential briefing.
Absolutely. And what's so important, I think, is seeing how these layers connect. You've got the high-level diplomacy, right? But then you have the daily struggle, the humanitarian crisis. It's all linked. We're here to help you connect those dots, understand the nuances, and really see why this particular moment feels, well, potentially significant.
Okay, so let's get into it. The big headline, this was Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. Former President Trump announcing Israel has agreed to terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. That's a pretty huge claim, especially coming from him at this moment.
It really is. Trump's statement, the core of it, says Israel accepted, and I'm quoting here, the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire. And he explicitly mentioned the goal to end the war. He also pointed out that it's the Qataris and Egyptians who are expected to sort of deliver this final proposal to Hamas.
And he had a pretty strong message for Hamas, too, didn't he? Sounded almost like an ultimatum.
Oh, absolutely. No minced words there. He warned them directly, saying, I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better. It will only get worse. That's not just talk. Sources suggest it's a deliberate tactic. Put immediate, very public pressure on Hamas. Try to shift the leverage before these key meetings.
Right, the meetings. Because this announcement drops just before some really high-stakes diplomacy is scheduled. What's happening there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Trump made this declaration right before he's scheduled to meet Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's at the White House next Monday. That meeting is, well, it's crucial. They're set to discuss the ceasefire, obviously, but also Iran, maybe even a trade deal. Trump apparently sees this as a potential turning point in this conflict, which has been going on for, what, nearly 21 months now? Brutal. And it's worth noting, too, Ron Dermer, Israel's Minister for Strategic Affairs, he was already in Washington on Tuesday.
Oh, interesting. So groundwork was being laid?
It seems that way. Dermer's role is often handling sensitive intelligence, long-term strategy. He met with senior officials, VP J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. His presence really underlines, the depth of the diplomatic push that was already happening.
Okay, that definitely sets the stage. But let's talk about the sticking points. If a deal is closer, what are the core disagreements? The things that have stopped deals before? What are the absolute non-negotiables for each side?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? The fundamental problem. Hamas has been consistent. They say they're willing to free all the hostages, but only in exchange for a full withdrawal of Israeli troops and an end to the war in Gaza. Israel, however, just rejects that outright. Their public stance is they'll agree to end the war if Hamas surrenders, disarms, and goes into exile. And Hamas, of course, refuses that. So you have these two positions, diametrically opposed. Very hard to bridge that gap.
So amidst all this talk, how are U.S. officials seeing Hamas's actual strength on the ground, their military capability? Does one side seem to have more leverage right now?
Well, the assessment from U.S. officials is sort of nuanced. They seem to believe Hamas has been significantly diminished, that their centralized command and control capabilities have deteriorated. But they also acknowledge the group is still capable of landing fatal blows to Israeli forces. So Hamas might not be the force it was, maybe less organized, but still dangerous, still a lethal threat. And that obviously plays into Israel's thinking about withdrawal.
And we have to factor in the regional players, right? Iran, specifically, Hamas's main backer. How has their recent situation maybe played into this?
That's a really important angle. Iran took a significant hit recently. Remember those 12 days of strikes by Israel and the United States on Tehran's key nuclear facilities last month? That confrontation, which maybe didn't get as much headlines as it should have, really could be altering the regional balance. Our sources suggest this could be maybe a quiet but significant factor influencing things now.
Potentially weakening Iran's ability to actively support Hamas, maybe creating a bit more space for diplomacy.
Let's shift from the diplomatic tables to the ground in Gaza. Because while these talks happen, what's the reality for people living there? The suffering must be immense. It is. And the reports are just stark, truly devastating. As of Monday, July 1st, Israeli airstrikes reportedly killed at least 74 people in Gaza. It tragically included 30 people killed at a seaside cafe. Just
Mhm.
horrific. Another strike in central Gaza killed 7 people from one family. You see these images, a Palestinian girl standing on the rubble of her family's home, the Alamawi family, and then Ali Mamawi injured himself attending the funeral for his relatives, killed in that same strike. These aren't abstract numbers. It's just daily terror and loss for civilians.
And the healthcare system. We hear about hospitals constantly. How bad is it?
Dire. Truly dire. And the specifics are sobering. Take Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. It's been a focal point throughout the war, right? Well, on Tuesday, kidney patients were seen waiting to leave. Why? Because the dialysis unit had to suspend services. They ran out of fuel. Critical fuel shortages needed just to power the generators. It's a sign of systemic collapse, really.
And aid. Getting humanitarian aid in. We've heard about chaos surrounding distribution.
Yes, and that raises serious questions about how effective the current system is, and accountability, too. Over 150 international charities, big names like Oxfam, Save the Children, Amnesty International, they've called for getting rid of the current Israeli and U.S.-backed aid distribution system. This call came after just widespread reports of chaos and deadly violence. Palestinians trying to get food facing violence, including reports of at least 10 Palestinians killed or just trying to get essential food. And alongside this, the danger continues. Israeli airstrikes recently killed at least 37 in southern Gaza's Khan Yunis, according to Nasser Hospital there.
And this isn't just contained to Gaza, is it? We're seeing wider regional effects.
Yeah. That's right. It keeps rippling outwards. Just recently, sirens went off across parts of Israel. There was a missile launched from Yemen, plus 2 projectiles from Gaza. Israeli defenses intercepted them all, apparently. But that Houthi missile from Yemen was significant. It was their first attack since that intense 12-day period where Israel hit Iranian nuclear sites. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, issued a pretty strong warning back, suggesting Yemen could face what Tehran faced. And the Houthis. Their media deputy head, Nasruddin Amer, went on social media and vowed Yemen wouldn't stop supporting Gaza until, quote, the aggression stops and the siege on Gaza is lifted. It just shows how interconnected everything is. This isn't isolated.
And finally, the people caught right in the middle of this for so long, the hostages. What's the latest understanding of their situation? It's just heartbreaking.
It really is. And the grim reality, according to reports, is that about 50 hostages are still captive in Gaza. But less than half are believed to still be alive. That dwindling number just casts such a dark shadow over everything. It puts immense pressure on the negotiations, obviously. For Hamas, maybe it means their main leverage is fading. For Israel, the urgency to rescue those still alive becomes even more intense.
So putting this all together, what does this mean for you listening to this, trying to make sense of it all? We've gone through the details of Trump's announcement, the demands from both sides, which are really far apart, still the truly awful humanitarian crisis, and these wider regional tensions.
Yeah, and if you sort of connect all those threads, you really start to grasp the immense complexity here. Brokering peace isn't just about getting leaders in a room. It's about navigating these deeply entrenched positions, the reality of ongoing violence, the desperate needs of civilians, and these constantly shifting power dynamics across the whole region.
So thinking about all that, we've seen ceasefires attempted before many times. We know the core demands haven't fundamentally changed much. Is there anything new in this current dynamic, maybe these regional shifts you mentioned, or perhaps the sheer scale of the humanitarian crisis now that you think could actually shift things, something that might lead towards a more sustained resolution, not just another temporary pause before it all starts again? What element could really make the difference this time?